So, what happens when President Trump's most loyal allies disagree on how to handle one of the most consequential cases in modern history? Unfortunately, we're finding out the answer in real time, and it's not pretty. Both Dan Bongino and Kash Patel have threatened to quit the Trump administration if Pam Bondi isn't fired. And on top of that, we have new information suggesting that 11-hour security camera footage, well, apparently it was edited. Ugh, what a mess. So let's start from the very beginning. At 9:09 this morning, Laura Loomer posted, "Scoop, FBI Director Kash and Dan Bongino are livid with Pam Bondi over her DOJ memo and the lack of transparency from her office regarding the Jeffrey Epstein files. Sources tell me Dan Bongino is taking the day off today, Friday, from his job as Deputy Director of the FBI, and there's now speculation on whether or not he will return to his job at the FBI over his disgust with Bondi's lack of transparency and handling of the Epstein files." Now, Laura Loomer is typically really good with her sources, and she often gets these leaks far in advance of everyone else, but she was the only one who posted this, so of course there was a lot of skepticism around that, but a few hours later, Axios confirmed the exact same thing. Scoop, FBI's Dan Bongino clashes with AG Bondi over handling of Epstein files. Now, they also reported and confirmed the exact same thing that Laura Loomer did, which is Bongino didn't come into work today, and this actually was intentional. He purposefully didn't come in as a protest to show his displeasure with Pam Bondi. On top of that, a source close to Bongino said, quote, "He ain't coming back." Now, it's important to note that was an anonymous source, and I think we all know how careful and skeptical we need to be when it comes to those unnamed anonymous sources, but there are still a few things we know for a fact here. Number one, Dan Bongino is very livid, and he's now in a public fight with Pam Bondi, and number two, he didn't come into the office today as a protest, and some of the reporting says he actually hasn't even been in the office since Wednesday because he is that upset. But this escalates even further, but before I get into that, what really set all of this off wasn't just the debacle that was the rollout of the Epstein files, but apparently there was a confrontation between the two of them in the Oval Office. Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, apparently President Trump was there as well as a few others, and they accused him of leaking information to News Nation, which resulted in this article. FBI Director Kash Patel, of course, would have released Epstein files months ago if he was able. Patel would have released every single piece of evidence. The accusation here was that Dan Bongino was getting blowback online. He was very upset, and the accusation goes to save his reputation, he leaked that information to News Nation anonymously so they could publish it, and it would make both Dan and Kash Patel look good and would obviously throw even more fuel on the fire against Pam Bondi. Well, nothing was ever settled in that discussion, but according to Axios, Pam said her piece in regards to this News Nation accusation. Dan said his piece. It didn't end on friendly terms. But on top of all of that, Dan was also getting blamed internally for the rollout, especially in regards to that missing minute. And so Dan felt like he was being set up to be the fall guy, and he didn't think he deserved any of the blame, and so that's where a lot of these hard feelings are coming from. So again, what we know so far based on the timeline, public fight, and then hasn't gone into work. And as if all of that wasn't bad enough, two of President Trump's most loyal supporters publicly fighting, Dan has raised the stakes even further, basically telling President Trump it's either her or me. According to Mary Margaret Alohan, who is a reporter for the Daily Wire, source close to Dan Bongino tells me it's either him or Pam Bondi, and that he won't stay at the FBI if she stays at the DOJ. Now, Mary did post a second update confirming that also Kash Patel wants Pam Bondi gone, and he would consider leaving, Patel would consider leaving if Bongino leaves, and that there are more frustrations with other documents that Bondi hasn't released. So that definitely got a lot more people interested. Again, these are huge accusations, and I know a lot of people trust the Daily Wire, but this has also been confirmed by Fox News at 3:07 p.m. EST. FBI's Dan Bongino thinking of resigning after clash with Pam Bondi over Epstein files fallout. The secondary heading there, another source told Fox News Digital, Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel have been in touch several times and are on the same page. So that is interesting because it both confirms and contradicts the the reporting, right? It confirms that Dan Bongino has issued an ultimatum behind the scenes, but it contradicts whether or not Kash Patel is on Bongino's side or with Pam Bondi's side. And unfortunately, there just isn't a lot of substantial reporting as far as where Kash Patel falls. There are a lot of reports either way, but they're not necessarily from, the top tier sources. So I would say it's not definitive in that sense yet. But Fox News also went on the air and said that both Bongino and Bondi have every intention to stay with the administration.
Bongino is thinking about his future with the FBI. We're told that both FBI Director Kash Patel and the Attorney General have every intention to stay and continue to serve.
So if that is true, I don't think Bongino is making empty threats. I think that suggests that Bongino believes that he has the upper hand here and that he can essentially force President Trump to make a choice. Now, that may come back to bite him in the butt. I don't know. But we do know that President Trump is generally very happy with Pam Bondi and is standing strong in her corner. So it's impossible to predict how this will end up and whose side he's going to take until President Trump actually speaks out about this and makes a decision. Now, just one more source on this topic before we move on to something else, but CNN confirms Deputy FBI Director Bongino has told People he is considering resigning amid Epstein files fallout. Now, CNN did speak to different sources. So now Fox News, The Daily Wire, CNN, Laura Loomer, Axios, we now have at least 5 different mainstream, if you will, sources that have reached out to their own sources, and they're all independently reporting this. So I believe that this story is true. Now, despite the blowback that Dan Bongino is getting internally in the administration, apparently some people in the administration are beginning to turn on Pam Bondi as well. And what really lit that fire was this article from the New York Times. Justice Department whistleblower warns of Trump administration's assault on the law. Basically, this whistleblower claimed that the DOJ higher-ups, including Pam Bondi, have basically been directing people to mislead judges and to lie and to just do all sorts of unscrupulous things. Now, of course, Pam Bondi has released a public statement denouncing all of that, saying it's just a disgruntled former employee. But this sort of attention and negative press has also rubbed people in the administration the wrong way, especially when you consider it's coming off of the heels of the outrage over the Epstein rollout. Now, Pam Bondi, for her credit, does have a few defenders out in the public, but before I get to that, I would like to acknowledge a Goose Down Story and Observation Station as the members of this video's Governor's Club. These are people who have given tips and super thanks to the channel. I am so glad that you enjoy my video. Well, Bill O'Reilly went on Newsmax last night to basically defend Pam Bondi and said he's not going to blame her despite all of the backlash that's brewing online. He believes that she is taking orders directly from President Trump.
Where are you on Pam Bondi resigning?
No, I'm not going to condemn Pam Bondi because she takes orders from the White House. She doesn't make unilateral decisions. She does what she's told to do. That's the way President Trump runs the administration. None of the cabinet heads make independent decisions. They all come out of the West Wing and the White House, all of them. So, you could sacrifice her,
right,
but it is a bad look for Donald Trump. You can't justify not being more upfront about a case that's captured the attention of millions of Americans.
And unfortunately, the bad news doesn't end there, because as if the rollout wasn't bad enough, it turns out that the footage was edited. So according to Wired, metadata shows the FBI's raw Jeffrey Epstein prison video was likely modified. So what they say here was, we were basically told that this was an unedited raw video from the security cameras. What they found through the metadata, and in case anyone's unfamiliar, everything that's digital has metadata. Like if you have a smartphone and you take a photo or a video behind the scenes, so to speak, it's going to capture not just the imagery you want it to, but information such as the date it was taken, the time, your location, if it was edited, all of that stuff. So they hired 2 forensic experts. One of them was Haney Farid, who not only is a professor at UC Berkeley, but he's also one of the top AI experts in the entire country, and he he actually is one of the people that gets called into courtrooms to testify on video evidence. Basically, has this video been doctored? Is it legitimate? Is it AI? And so they had these two people, including Fareed, go over this video, and they found that this 11-hour video that was supposedly straight from the security camera is actually two different videos that were, quote, stitched together. On top of that, the frame, the aspect ratio changes halfway through, which is really unusual, especially considering it's supposedly from the same camera over the same time span. Now, they also found that it was modified and saved and exported 4 to 5 times. Yeah. And now, one of those times, if it was just saved and exported once, that wouldn't be a big deal, right? Let's say the security camera system saves its files in a .mov or .avi format, and you wanted to make it more accessible and save it as an .mp4 file, right? That would technically be a modification. So a few modifications are, you can explain them, right? But the fact that you have 4 or 5 here, and then it's clearly 2 different videos stitched together, that has also raised eyebrows. And again, to be very clear, I'm not making any accusations against the administration. I'm not even promoting a conspiracy theory. Like, I don't know what happened. What I am saying is that this certainly is not a good look. It would not be a good look for any administration. And the tension that's so clearly simmering beneath the surface, if it's not addressed quickly, I'm afraid that this could turn into a bigger deal for the administration than it needs to. But as always, all of that is just my analysis and commentary. That is what's going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So assuming that all of this reporting is correct, assuming that there's no exaggeration from these sources whatsoever, and if it's an ultimatum, Dan Bongino versus Pam Bondi, who do you hope President Trump keeps? Let me know whose team you're on down in the comments below. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.